Welcome to the virtual meeting of the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Our meeting will begin here before too long. The board is still meeting, and as soon as we have more information, we will get that over to you. But wanted to welcome you into the virtual meeting of the Georgetown Rotary Club. We'll begin soon. Thanks for joining us. Hope everybody is doing wonderful today. Hey friends, Rob Pipp here again. Welcome to the virtual meeting of the Georgetown Rotary Club. This is normally the time during the meeting when we're in physical with each other that we have gathering and fellowship. So please take this opportunity right now to call and check on fellow members. George Lorgan, our club president, will join us here shortly. Again, they are wrapping up a Rotary board meeting, and we will begin shortly. So again, please take this time for gathering and fellowship and to check on fellow members. We'll get started here shortly. Thank you. Hey friends, Rob Pip here, the Rotary Club of Georgetown. We're going to get started here before too long. Please take this moment if you haven't already, and if you're on the YouTube stream, just feel free to chat there, say hello to everybody. If you've got a phone number of a fellow Rotarian, make sure to send them a call if you get a chance, or a text message just to check up on them. We'll get started here before too long. Thanks for being here today. It's the Rotary Club of Georgetown, Texas Friday meeting. Hey, good afternoon, friends. Rob Pip here of the Georgetown Rotary Club. We'll hear from our president, George Lorigan, here before too long. We're in a time now that is normally our fellowship time when we are meeting physically. I know this is a virtual meeting. Take this time to call on fellow Rotarians and others and check up on them. We'll get started here with the meeting in probably about, I'd say, 8 minutes or so. Thanks for being here today. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Friday. We'll be back here in a little bit.
Thumbs up to go ahead. All right.
Hi, George.
Hello, hello, welcome. So we're going to go ahead and get the Rotary meeting started. Do a quick screen share so we get our slides up here. As long as that works right. I didn't actually set it all up ahead of time, but it still should work. There we go. All right. Now let's go back to the beginning. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Thank you so much for coming to our online meeting. We very much appreciate everything that you're doing. First person up is Tim Harris with our invocation.
Please pray with me. Lord, we ask your blessings on this Rotary Club. We ask your blessings on its members and their families. We also ask your blessings on all those affected by this virus. Please protect all of our first responders, healthcare workers, and all those essential people who are looking out for others in this crisis. Help them all to stay strong, stay healthy, and help all of us recover from this difficult time. Please help us to live the Rotary motto, service above self, and help us to remember that when 3 or 4 are gathered together, it's in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. Next up, we have Larry Baird.
The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Larry, thank you very, very much. And milestones, actually, I think Glenn is going to do milestones for me today.
Forgot to unmute. Okay, so for members' birthdays, we have none. For spouses' birthdays, Brian Derringer's wife, Gina, April the 19th. Anniversaries, Laura and Jim Antoine, 34 years. Hector and Alejandra Martinez, 6 years. Club anniversaries, Wiley Rudisil, 11 years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome any visiting guests or Rotarians. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you with us, and thank you for the 2 people that are prospective members, Aaron and Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today. Dennis, I don't know if you're on Zoom or not. I didn't see you on Zoom, but if you are, this is your opportunity to say something.
I am on Zoom. I'm not sure why my charming picture's not up there, but I can't worry about it.
Not to worry. You got it.
Show me your Rotary pin. I like that.
There we go. There's
We're
our
all
pin.
there. That's fine.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you for the support, and thank you for making sure I had all the things I need to put this together. George Oliver.
Yes, so we have had 2 individuals who have been proposed for membership, Aaron Hillary and Chris Walker. Today, their proposals were reviewed and accepted by the board. So they are officially proposed for membership. Typically, as you know, at this time, we have their proposals on Carol's desk for a couple of weeks. Well, that's not practical now. So instead, I'm going to scan their proposals, send them over to George Lorigan, and George will email them out to the individual members. All of you have an opportunity to review those proposals and provide any feedback, both positive and negative, that you may have. So we'll give you 2 weeks to do that. So welcome on board, Aaron and Chris.
George, thank you very, very much. Dr. Stephen Benold. I have finally given him good instructions so he could actually be here. I apologize for all of my errors in the past and not keeping you up with us.
George, I was ready to give a COVID report last week, but it was Good Friday and we didn't have a meeting. Here in Williamson County, we are seeing an arithmetic increase in cases, but we've never had a geometric increase. And that is, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Our number of cases per 100,000 population is 1/3 of the major metropolitan areas in Texas, even though we are about the 10th or 11th most populous county in the state. So we're doing quite well here. The onset of new cases is actually declining. Even though the absolute number of cases goes up by about 4 a day, 4 as a percentage of 120 is a much smaller percentage than 4 of 40. And so actually the percentage growth in new cases is falling even now in Williamson County. Thanks to Judge Stubblefield, I have access to some good national data and graphs, and it looks like that the total new cases in Texas are leveling off. The total new cases in New York are leveling off, and in the United States as a whole, it looks like new cases are leveling off. There was a fascinating report last week in the Wall Street Journal where they looked at the number of ICU beds in a state and then compared that to ICU and ventilator demand when the virus peaks in that state. And Texas, even at its peak, will have nearly double the ICU beds and ventilators that are anticipated to be needed. So in Texas, we are in great shape and probably will not have the squeeze that they've experienced in New York City. And that's the COVID report for this week.
Dr. Bonneau, that is fantastic. Thank you very, very much. A couple of things we talked about in the past. David Kellerman, are you still on the Zoom? If you are, do you want to touch base on the ability to making masks over there at Lone Star Lanes? I know that you're not doing it. It's actually done by one of the bowlers in the bowling league there, and his daughter and all. But if anyone's interested in that, that's available. I want a volunteer opportunity. A couple of the volunteer opportunities, I'll let Dr. Bonneau, I mean, not Dr. Bonneau, but Dr. Swain talk about them if he wants to, real briefly. Caring Place.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, George. Real briefly, and I'll go back to the masks being produced or assembled over at Mel's. I was over there earlier this week and picked up some masks, and Ruben and his daughter, there were about 6 volunteers working. He has a very impressive assembly, and I think that that process is moving along pretty well. He is actually distributing masks nationwide to New York, California, in addition to locally. So he has a pretty substantial operation there. Locally here with the Caring Place, they are still distributing food to families on the 3 days a week. And they've also identified a list of needs that individuals can donate to. There's also a request, at least last week, from Faith in Action, asking whether individuals would be willing to participate in a survey to determine their interest and willingness to do some volunteer driving of folks to medical appointments only. But they are essentially operating, Faith in Action, that is operating remotely and providing referral assistance to their clients via telephone, and when absolutely necessary, driving them or having them driven to medical appointments. Let me just say that the task force that George asked me to coordinate with Henry Yu and Elizabeth McFarland, we've been meeting, and Chris Cash has joined us from the Grants Committee, and we have a process developed that we presented to the board earlier this morning to invite 3 organizations locally who are providing some basic services to apply for grants from our Rotary Club. Those applications will be due by next Friday, and the plan is to have them voted on by the board and checks to go out the first week of May. So our task force, George, thank you for the opportunity to serve our community and our club in this way.
You're so welcome. We just thank you. You know, as we looked at this this crisis and things came up, we basically looked at what are primarily things we need to function. We operate as a club. We need to take care of our club members, and we need to continue to support our community. And we just thank you so much for spearheading that operation there, for supporting the community. And George Oliver spearheaded the operation as far as taking care of our club members, and everyone's working together to keep our club running. So it's been very, very well done. I'm just so excited that I have an opportunity to watch all this happen. You guys are amazing.
George, if I may.
Yes, sir, Jim.
On the same subject as what Ron spoke about, I am honored to be on the Advisory Council of the Salvation Army. And thanks to Ron and Henry Wu and so on, we're going to apply for one of those grants. But what I really wanted to talk to you about is the fact that the Salvation Army helps people that need food. And we've been mostly helping people who can't come to us for the food. We need to deliver it. So we have partnered with Bob Weimer of the Helping Hands, and we actually are accepting donations. I'm accepting donations at my house. The executive director, Laura Spradlin of the Salvation Army, is accepting donations at her house. And we're working on 2 or 3 other locations. And the way we accept the donations is we have a great big garbage can, a plastic garbage can it's got the Salvation Army logo on the front. And we have it on our front patio, and people just come up and put it in there. We then isolate those donations for 48 hours, and then we get Bob Weimer to deliver them to people who have called in, and we're able to put together a package for them. So
that's excellent. Thank you.
My question is, could I send this information to you, and you might send it to the Rotarians?
Yes. Yeah, that would be
and
great.
the more food and it's amazing how much food you can get out of your closet when you look at stuff you haven't used in a while.
Perfect.
So,
thank you
for
so
that.
much. Thank you. That's actually a very, very good idea. So, y'all seem to have a very good system on that. Thank you very much. Chris Cash.
So one more volunteer opportunity. I'm on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. Right now, the Boys and Girls Club is serving a smaller population of kids than they typically do with after school stuff. But right now, they're averaging about 20 kids a day. And they're kids that are kids of essential workers, basically. They're not the typical Boys and Girls Club membership, but they're doing about 20 kids a day. The Boys and Girls Club, the volunteer opportunity, they are picking up 2 meals a day for these 20 kids that they're getting from the school district. So they're picking up breakfast and they're picking up lunch. So my request from the club, George put my cell phone number and my email address up there. If you have an interest in being on the sign-up list to pick up food on behalf of these kids at the Boys and Girls Club, please call me or shoot me an email. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent opportunity. Just highlight a couple of things that we talked about before already. Field of Honor will have a new website that it'll be start testing next week and then go live probably a week or so after that. And also one of the things that the board approved for this year is flags to honor COVID-19 heroes will be added to the flag is available for the Field of Honor this year. Some great updates in that area. Couple highlights for the school not opening. We don't have any more early act first night this year. Ryla was definitely canceled. Ramp builds are none for the month of April and probably May. Larry will give us an update on that as he keeps changing that. The golf tournament is postponed and maybe get canceled. It depends on how far it has to get postponed. We won't have it in the fall, but we may have it in the summer if we do. The couple other things here. Guess I should change my slide a little better, but the district assembly is postponed and it may end up becoming a virtual district assembly. Celebration of Clubs is postponed and may be canceled. Without any further ado, Tim Emerson. Tim Emerson is an individual I've known for many years. I actually worked with him in the National Guard over 20 years ago. He is, in my opinion, one of the leading experts on cybersecurity. I remember things that Tim would do with in the area of security that most people can't do today, and that was 20 years ago when we worked together in the National Guard. So let me, without any further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow Tim to share his screen. Tim Anderson, he now works for VA and he's the director of cybersecurity.
All right. Hey, yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today about an area that I consider very important, that I don't think we get to continue to educate as we leave the education system. So hopefully after today, I give you some tools and some understanding that will help continue to protect you and your family in reference to this this digital world that we're dealing with. And I won't focus on COVID. That way we get a little bit away from talking about COVID during this time as well. I think we get enough conversations throughout the day to talk about that. So I will talk about scams and things like that are COVID related, but I won't stay on that topic. Two things that I focus on. I work for the VA, as you heard, but I also coach and technically mentor high school kids in the Georgetown Independent School District. Matter of fact, one of the teams that I coach is actually virtually coming together and working on a thing called the National Cyber League, and they're actually competing against other teams all across the country at the collegiate level, and it starts today and they go throughout the weekend. So good luck for them, and I'll continue on here. So we're going to go over Introduction to Cybersecurity 101, just kind of give it a little understanding. We're going to talk about password management, which is, very important, and how to understand how to create one and keep it protected. We'll talk about some common internet threats and then some internet scams and fraud. All right. So here's some interesting statistics. Looking at the demographics and understanding, there is, in 2017, 16.7 million victims. That number went down in 18, and I think the number is still going down. But what's interesting to note, look at the chart below on the fraud loss by age. As the number goes down, the age category of who gets hit the most goes up. I think the people that get hit the most are really of the higher age group, and so very important for you guys to understand that. And there's a reason why that is, and I think it's because of simple things like this. I think it's good that the Rotary Club thought this to be important, to provide you some education to continue to understand how to secure yourself in this digital world. All right, so what is cybersecurity? It's the tools we use and actions that we take to keep our computers, network, and information safe and available for those who need it, and protect those and protect it from those who don't need to have it. So very important. That's basically what cybersecurity in a nutshell is. Some interesting dollar figures that go into how much money is being spent in this industry is crazy, and it continues to go up. But think about that. If businesses and industry is spending money into defending themselves, what are you spending your money in defending yourself on? Because it's a lot cheaper to pay for defend than it is to pay for recovery. And so that's one of the interesting statistics that this kind of represents. So some common internet myths is if you don't put your information online, you're safe from intrusion. No, that's not true. If you think about all the things that you provide your information to, different clubs, different, the motor vehicle, everything that you actually have your information in could actually be compromised as well. So your information's out there, and you trust those organizations to secure it. And in the government, we definitely have a stronger responsibility to it, but we also need to continue to challenge our communities, our businesses in our communities to do the same thing as we share our credit card information and things of that nature in our local communities. I've actually tried to get with the Chamber of Commerce to have a brag bag lunch sessions to kind of teach them how to secure their businesses. Another thing is if you're posting anything online, it's only shared with your friends and family. Well, once again, if you don't understand how that technology that you're using shares information, it's not guaranteed that you're not sharing it to everyone. So understanding if you're going to use Facebook, Twitter, whatever, social media things that you use, understand the security settings of those. All of those type of things, you can YouTube it, Google it all day long and walk you through how to secure those settings. And by me being here today, I've asked George, definitely you can have my information. If you have a specific question, I will definitely look forward to answering any questions you may have even after this. Okay, two things that become from a physical threat from a cybersecurity perspective is dumpster diving and shoulder surfing. Dumpster diving is real. There are people who go through your garbage. So when you throw your bank statements and your other personal information away and you don't shred it and you make it easy for them to gather that information, they are collecting. And then pretty soon they have enough information to possibly, steal your identity. So make sure that you dispose of your sensitive information appropriately. Shoulder surfing, if you go to a Starbucks, you go to anywhere out in public and you're entering your credit card information, or if you're entering your passcode or anything like that, and you're not paying attention to your surroundings, who knows that? How do you know that someone doesn't have a camera that's zoomed in on your behavior? I've been to several key events, a big, huge one out at DEF CON out at Vegas, where they actually showed where they watched somebody enter their credit card information through camera and then replicated that later. All right. So cyber hygiene, basic personal practices that keep computers and data safe. Lock your computer with a password when it's in public areas. Shield your keyboard when you're entering your password. Don't let strangers use your computer. I don't consider a family member a stranger, but once again, and then don't share your password. That's probably common across the board. Even with the family members, you should try to make sure that they have their own password as well into different computers. I think a lot of times we share our computer with our family. They should have their own login. That way just because you think that everyone's practicing safely doesn't necessarily mean that it is happening. Okay, mobile devices, very interesting. As we go to an Internet of Things, we start to connect through our mobile devices and there's many things that are connected to the internet now. Well, here's an interesting statistic for you. Out of all the cyber crimes that happened in 2019, 70% of those were fraud were accomplished through mobile platforms. So that's interesting to think that, here we use our computer quite often, but most of those crimes are now focused on mobile devices. Why? Because we think they're safe. And 82% of those frauds are from an application that's loaded on your mobile device. So one thing I'll tell you, the difference between an Android phone and an Apple phone. An Android phone uses open source applications. What does that mean? That means that there are a lot of programmers out there that like to build things that help people, but there's also a lot of bad people like to build things to take things away from people. So the scrutiny that Apple goes through on an application loaded is a little more stringent, not trying to dig on Google or open market, but just know the application, understand the application, do some research on it, see if there's any known exploits out there. Don't just assume that the application's safe. I guess that's my bottom line on that one. And I gave you a link here to kind of understand that statistic. I've given you several links in your document, so you can actually go and do some research on your own. So let's talk about browser safety. And if I'm going fast, there's a reason. You guys all have your precious time, and I have a short amount of time to get this information out. But like I said, you'll be able to ask me questions later and even at the end of this. So understanding browser safety. This is very key in a lot of browsers to understand when you're going to a website. Are there any indicators that it's not safe? And if it's not safe, don't continue unless you know for sure. Maybe it's your own website and you didn't even keep it safe. But just understand what websites you're going to. There's some simple ways in a lot of browsers now. They'll give you indicators. It'll be green. It'll have a lock on it. HTTPS, having that S, what does that necessarily mean? If it has that S, it actually went through a certification process to make it an authentic certificate for that website. So that's why that S is so important as well, and also it creates a secure connection for that site. And look at some sites will actually will have spelling errors. So look at this example I have in here, Bank of America. That's not an O, that's a 0. Bank of America does not spell theirs that way. And by the way, Bank of America doesn't even spell it that way at all. They do B-A-B-O-A. Okay, PII. This is your information. It's not anyone else's information, and so don't give it out freely. Whether it be on a phone call, whether it be on an email, whether it be on a website, don't give it out freely. And what are we talking about when we say that PII? You got your first name, initial, last name. That's pretty common. I think we share that out the most. That's the first layer, and so that's not really the most critical one. But when you give that out, you start giving out the other things that go along with it: social security number, driver's license number, passport number. Here's a good example of a passport number: an old passport. What do we do with that old passport? If you're not shredding that old passport before you throw it away, you've just given someone your identity. They take that picture, they replicate it onto it, and they counterfeit a new ID. Credit cards, old credit cards, shred those things before you cut them up into nice little pieces. That little magnet that's on the back of that credit card, you can still get data off of it if you don't cut that up correctly. So just shred it. They have shredders that actually will shred that credit card for you. Security questions, think about how you answer those questions. Can they easily be identified just by knowing you? So in other words, what's your wife's mother's name? Sometimes the security questions don't actually answer them like they're asking you. If you can develop your own security question, those are even better. But and then passwords, fingerprints, and things of that nature. Okay, so protecting your PII, some of the things I've already hit on, your social media, making sure you understand the privacy settings, making sure that you're careful when you're online. Regularly check your credit card statements and your financial records. That's a very common way to be in front of being compromised. So someone may have already made one transaction, don't let them make another. So continue to monitor those. Make sure you use a reputable antivirus. I think a lot of people think, hey, I have a new operating system, Microsoft, and it has Microsoft Defender. That is one layer. It is not the most robust layer. So it's okay to. I think Microsoft's getting better at providing a security, an antivirus type software, but it doesn't hurt to pay a $25, $30 a month for a more professional, and I'll give you some examples here of some professional ones. But once again, that's that investment, so you're not paying later. All right, so let's go into password management. This is my favorite topic because I think I always hit somebody who actually has a password that falls into the weak category. I teach these kids the same thing on how to actually how to break a password, because they need to understand how simple it is, so they understand that why it's so important to have a strong one. So here's some simple bad passwords: birth dates, names, like just flat out pet names, parents' names, spouses' names, dictionary words. I guarantee you, if it's on here and you're using one of those, I highly recommend that you go and change them. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how to change them. The reason why this is so important, let me show you some statistics here. So if you use a 6-character, now looking at the weak length, which is ABC 1, 2, 3, that's a weak password, and then tap it into how many characters. Look at the characters in relation to how long it takes to crack that password. So if a 6-character, it can be cracked in 3 minutes. 7 character, 5 hours, and you keep going, look at 10 characters, 526 years. And those statistics, you know, they can argue back and forth. Bottom line off of this is the more complex your password, the longer it takes. And wait till you see this next statistic. So now if we start to put complexity into your password, you got the upper lowercase, the numbers, the symbols, which is strongly encouraged. Look at how long it takes to crack that password that not only has the right amount of characters, but also the different variety of those characters. 5.3 centuries. So think about CyberPass, a word, 56 seconds. What happens is there's a database of dictionary words, and all they do when they're trying to crack your password is run that list, which is a lot, by the way, and it takes a lot to do that. Matter of fact, at one conference I've been at, I got that database. It's a law. It took 2 hard drives to have that database. But people who do this for a living, as in cybercrime for a living, they have it ready and available, and they can run that against your weak password and figure it out. All right, so let's talk about how to create a strong password. Not only did I talk about the complexity, but also paraphrases is a good idea. Well, so you can help remember them. Like, where's the beef? There's your paraphrase. So how do I represent where's the beef in a strong complex password? So if you see how they have it represented there's a good example. So take a phrase that you can easily remember and paraphrase it with using characters and upper and lowercase, and make sure you're using at least 10. Another good idea is making sure that you don't have the same password for all your accounts. You're probably going, man, he knows me or he's watching me. Gmail, Facebook, bank. Make sure you have separate passwords for those accounts. I know it's a pain. I will show you some password vaulting ideas that will help you, but it's like I said, it's better to pay up front the pain than to have to dish out the money later because you've been compromised. An idea here is take a complex password that you're using and you like it and you want to use it again. Well, let's add some characters that help represent that technology that you're logging, or service that you're logging into. Example, Gmail, GMA being added to your complex password. So now you have it associated to what type of service you're trying to log into. So that's a technique. There are many. I'm just giving you an example. This one's not a good example because it spells out the word Ronald. So it would figure that one out real quick. But just come up with a nice complexity one, and then you can start adding characters that represent that, Gmail, Facebook, and things of that nature. But I'll always say it's better just to have different passwords all the way around. And to change them often. Very important to change them often. If you remember, I showed you how long it takes to crack passwords. So you want to stay in front of that time frame. So if you're changing it before they can before they crack that first one, well, guess what? Then they have to start all over, right? So it's kind of important that when you add complexity and you add your changing, the odds of you're getting your password hacked is pretty slim. We've actually ran this into a little test lab one time, and it's chasing a rabbit. It's hard to do. Okay, so we're talking about password vaulting. There's several ways to do this. There's applications that do it. Make sure, once again, a trusted application. A lot of, I think, Norton and Semantic and McAfee, they're all doing this they're all sharing this kind of secure type of service now. LifeLock is partnered with Norton. McAfee has a web service, if you have it loaded, that you can actually store your web session account session in McAfee, and McAfee will lock that into a vault, and you have to have a special password to get in the vault. So that becomes your critical strong password, and then you have everything else stored in McAfee. Those are techniques, and they're pretty reliable by the vendor, and that do it for a living. Two-factor authentication. I strongly encourage that you do this with as many websites or that you log into that allow it. Anything that you are logging into that allow you to do two-factor authentication, I strongly encourage it. So basically what happens is when you log into a website, it's going to say, hey, what 4-digit phone do you want to send this code to? No, it's going to say, hey, tell me what the last 4 digits of your phone that I have on file is. And after you validate that it is the same number as yours, then they'll send you this special code. So it's something you have, something you know, and something you do. But it's really just making sure that PIN that you get, that's that 2-factor. I'm taking the PIN, I'm putting it in. I've already done my password. That's the first factor. Now I'm taking this PIN that they're sending me and I'm plugging it in. That's the second factor. So I strongly encourage that you do this on as many websites as you can. All right, compromised account. How do you know? This is a matter of fact, I don't know, you might have received this message from some of your Facebook friends, or if you're on Facebook, where say, hey, I think you've been compromised because I'm getting these weird ads from you or emails from you. Those are good examples that your account's been compromised. Immediately change your password. Come up with another complex version of your password. You had troubles logging in. Don't immediately think if I have a trouble logging in. Trouble logging in would be that you're constantly having trouble logging in. But changing password shouldn't be something you hate. It should be something you desire to do. All right, so getting into the fun and nitty gritty, the common internet threats. So we're going to explain what kind of threats they are before we go into some of the fraud. So malware, software that's designed and written to steal information, spy on user, gain control of your computer. And we categorize those into 2 areas of how they spread and what it does. So I think you'll download like the, hey, I can clean your registry, or I can clean your computer software. Yep, they sure can. And they can do other things in the background as well, because, and we'll talk about some of that background behavior. The types of malware, or the names of them, that's what was very interesting. I think in the IT community, we don't try to get encryptic when we name things. We actually kind of label them pretty commonsensical. Example, virus, a spread of from machine to machine with human assistance. That's what viruses do, right? We spread it with human assistance. Worm, it can infect without human assistance. And then Trojan horse. If you've seen the movie of Troy, the Trojan and how they came into that city, this is exactly where it's named from. It's inside the horse was an army ready to attack. Inside this computer, inside the software is an army of ones and zeros ready to attack your computer and do what it's not intended to do. Adware, spyware, and ransomware. Never get to the bottom one, ransomware. And that's, there are in the current antivirus tools at the larger, the Norton, the antivirus, McAfee, and even I don't think, I think Defender has it. I mean, Microsoft Defender now has ransomware defending, where you can turn on some ransomware defense mechanisms with these capabilities, which which I've said, McAfee, Norton, or Defender, which comes with Microsoft. So adware is kind of, if you've been plagued with a bunch of ads coming up on your computer, you've probably been compromised. You probably need to get clean. Spyware, basically, or as you're working on this type of application, it's actually taking information from your machine and sending it out, collecting information on you. I think you probably see this behavior where you've logged into, you've been searching on how to find a new pair of work boots. And then all of a sudden you're on Facebook and you see this ad for work boots. That's kind of interesting. Well, that's called spyware that takes place, is what I call that. And they're actually monitoring your behavior and giving you some information. But and then ransomware, and actually you've heard about this in the news over and over again, is plaguing our medical community and big business. But people are paying, so it's a big moneymaker. So defend yourself from ransomware, and we'll talk about mechanisms on how those get onto your systems. And then last but not least, the beautiful Rogue security software. I think this is the most common one that people tend to go for because they look at cheap. It is very, very cheap. It's free at a cost of what it's going to do in the background. So it might be beneficial to invest in reputable security software as opposed to these free ones that will clean your system and clean your bank account. Browser hijacking. Basically it's changing your browser settings. You this might have happened where your homepage changed to this new homepage. And then zombie. This is probably one of the worst. Zombie means your computer's been taken over and it's basically sitting there sleeping, waiting to be called, and your computer then becomes part of a more complex attack. So you want to defend from all these, and we talked about up to this point what to do to help defend against it, and these are why you're defending against these things. And here's some of the how does it spread. So the internet, download medias, downloading free software, using removable media, and then email attachments. The most common one, by the way, out of all of them are between internet and email attachments. Most internet browsers protect, do some first level protection. You probably have to turn those off unless you've not updated. If you've not updated yourself, and we'll talk about that in a second as well, then it probably won't protect. But email attachments are probably the most common in links. All right, manipulating people, social engineering. This is the most common thing that happens when I don't know how many people have received that IRS phone call, and or at least a computer guy that says, "Hey, I've noticed that you're having trouble on your computer, and I'm trying to help improve its performance. So if you can do X, I will get that taken care of for you." And they usually try to send you a link, and then they own your computer. So don't fall for those social engineering. Matter of fact, George was talking about our history. We used to do these vulnerability assessments, and we would actually go to the customer support desk and say, "Hey, I'm system administrator X, and I'm trying to get the administrator password so I can help these users. That I think they changed it on me. This is what and then and see if they'll give it to you, and usually they will. That's social engineering." Okay, so this is some of the methods they use to deliver social engineering. Social engineering is the content within these capabilities. So phishing is basically sending out a bunch of information. It's kind of like you're casting a net, and then hopefully you're catching as many people as possible because they're clicking a link that you have in that email. Spear phishing is you're focused on a certain group. Let's say you're trying to get into a certain bank, and so you found a list of people who work at that bank, and you send that email to that to the people of the bank. If you go after the CIO of a bank or something like that, that's called whaling, where you're actually focused on a key leader. Vishing and smishing are two new ones that have come on since we got to a more mobile environment. So vishing is actually cell phone, and smishing is actually SMS messages. So when you get that little text message, and it says, "Hey, you've won this. Click this." Don't click this. Bottom line, and I know you probably want to win things, but look at a more reputable way to be notified about winning things. Don't fall for those vishing and smishing attempts. So I'm going to give you an example of a phishing email. I pull these examples up all the time for to kind of show when I get one. I actually show my kids. I say, "Look, this is what one looks like. See this email address? Why would you even think that would be appropriate? Look at the way it's written. Look at the spelling. The spelling. There's a ton of spelling errors. Grammar, is probably wrong as well. All caps are thrown in there. Those are some indicators. Not all the time, but they could be indicators. Asking for personal information. If someone's sending you an email asking you for personal information, there should be an auto delete button that goes to that. Executable attachments, don't execute them. If you don't know who it came from and you don't know it's a credible source, don't let curiosity kill your computer. And then the last piece is they won't say who it's from. You know, it'd be some, you know, Joe Schmo that it's like customer service, not really a person's name. So these are some common little indicators. A lot of your email services will provide some kind of spam approach to these, and they'll see these kind of anomalies, and they'll behaviors, and they'll actually put them into your spam folder, your junk mail. So those are good, but not all the time. So keep in mind, if I send you, it's kind of like if I crowd a door, and my job is to check everyone off by name, and I crowd the door, I'm probably going to miss somebody if I send a lot of people at the door at that same time. Well, that's the same thing that they do with this, is they'll send a bunch of emails to an email server, hoping that they'll crowd the policy that moves it to junk mail or keeps it from you getting it, and hoping that one or two get through. And that happens all the time. All right, so this particular one, how to avoid internet threat. This is a video you can watch on your own. It's really short, but bottom line is use proper anti-malware software, which I think I've hit many a times on this. Use a VPN. This is a one that I don't see a lot of people doing. On your mobile devices, you can actually, your antivirus software, like I have McAfee, and McAfee's on my iPhone, and it comes with a VPN service. So that means anytime I'm surfing with my iPhone on, you know, through any service, I actually turn on VPN. VPN is a virtual private network. It actually creates an encryption tunnel between your mobile device and the site that you're trying to connect to. And then that means it decrypts on the outside. So people would have to try to get in the middle there, and that's hard to do when you're using an encrypted tunnel. But keep in mind, there are malicious VPN apps out there, so make sure you use a credible one. Don't avoid security updates. Very important to constantly go in and see what don't just assume that it's happening automatically. I went on a data restoration job one time, and there was a company used to critique restaurants, and they lost 14 years worth of data. And their answer to me was, well, I thought we were updating. They literally just thought it was automatic and it was happening. We did get them restored. That's the good piece. But bottom line is they became a victim because that was their answer. They thought it was updating. And then be wary of public Wi-Fi. My recommendation, if you with a lot of cell phone accounts now, they give you unlimited connectivity. Use that. Don't think the Wi-Fi is better. 9 times out of 10, it's not better. But if you are going to use public Wi-Fi, VPN. Make sure you're VPNing. All right. I told you I will hit anti-malware software, antivirus software. I will hit this over and over because I think it's very important. And no, Semantic is not bigger because I think it's better. It's just the icon that was on here. So all these are very reputable. I'm not endorsing any of them, so don't come back at me and say, hey, you told me this was a better one. I'm just letting you know these are some options out there. Okay, and then I talk about public Wi-Fi. I think this is one thing I hit all the time is, understanding public Wi-Fi. It's great that everyone's allowing free internet when you're sitting at the hospital and they give you the guest network. It's awesome that they're allowing that, but at the end of the day, it's probably not better. All right, internet scams and frauds. And George, please let me know if I'm doing good on time or not.
Hey, Tim, we're a little bit over time.
Oh,
we really need to. I know we've sent all this out to everyone, so they all have the information already. But we are about 5 minutes over on time.
Okay, so I can continue. I'll go straight to questions, or hit at least this big one right here.
Go ahead and hit this big one.
Okay, so scam awareness. They come from all over. They sound like they're reputable companies. It could be from the government, financial institutes, dating sites, if you're still in the market, online and phone surveys, donation organizations. Once again, if you don't know why, don't become the curious cat that killed your computer. Donate to organizations that you know. Online phone surveys. I got that your opinion matters, but make sure it matters with something something that you know. Don't just give it out freely, because it'll be taken away from you freely if you be compromised. And the biggest one, and is the IRS scam. And I actually added a vignette at the end of your presentation to kind of walk through how that IRS scam. Sometimes it comes in email, sometimes it comes over the phone. So I added those. Each one of these kind of go into each one of those scams, a little example of each one of those scams. I know we're running out of time. We ran out of time, so I don't know if we have time for any questions, but I'll leave it right here if we do.
Let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and end the Rotary meeting. One of the nice things about having it virtual, people can come and go as they need. They're not tied to this and having to be here. But we'll continue to leave it open so that you can answer questions for as long as people would like to ask questions, which is what we often do at the regular meetings that come afterwards. So in order to close the meeting out, let me go ahead and ask if there's any questions. Let me share my screen real quick, and then we'll come back to yours. So are there any announcements that haven't been told to me for the good of Rotary? I don't see any things typed in anywhere. So let me go on to, so we're going to close the meeting with, as we always do, with our four-way test. So the things we think, say, or do. First,
is it the truth?
Second,
is it fair
to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? We are adjourned, and we can stay on to ask questions of Tim.
Hey, Tim, I got a quick question for you. Do you foresee the day when there will be a hack-proof method of security for cyber use in general?
Do I foresee the day when there'll be a hack-proof security? No. Everything on the internet, everything that we do is made of ones and zeros, right? If you don't know that. So everything is all made of ones and zeros. And so this is the way I always look at it. The 1 and a 0, the 0 has a hole in it. And it's still human that are developing it. So the 0 has a hole in it. So our goal is to ensure that we capture that hole as fast as possible and defend against it as fast as possible. So no, I don't think there'll ever be a day that there'll be a hack-proof. Never. I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Hey, Tim, we had someone, got to take off my headphone there. We had someone on the YouTube stream, this is Rob, Ken White, ask about what about apps and programs like LastPass? I think you had touched a little bit on that, talking about two-form authentication and those things. Can you answer that question for us?
Yeah, is that Ken White still on the call here?
Yeah, he's on YouTube earlier.
Okay. So for the community, I actually worked with Ken White and at the Texas Army National Guard as well. We served together. So a shout out to him, a fellow brother in arms. So yeah, those are great. Those, matter of fact, OnePass. But once again, research those companies. I'm not going to those are great applications that do those, but make sure you research those companies. I see a lot of sell for services, and if you try to research the company, you may see it's an India-based or a China-based. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not trying to say, hey, I'm all against China. I just say, why not? Why, if there is a U.S.-based capability, why go outward? So that's the way I would present that. Hope that answered your question, Ken.
Hey, there's some other questions here, Tim. I just wanted to get to those to let folks know that we're on the Zoom as well. I didn't see any more on YouTube, but there are some in the Zoom chat room. One gentleman, this was Glenn, asking, I want to know what spyware is and how to know if you have it.
Yes. Okay. So going back to the defense mechanism for spyware. Okay. So spyware, well, first going back to the defense mechanism, the anti malware, antivirus. So that's the best way. So making sure you have a reputable, strong antivirus solution. They're actually coming down in price, very, very reasonable. They make family deals, so you can actually secure 10 devices and with some of these services. And then scanning your computer, making sure there's a scan that takes place constantly, and then that's the best way to let those devices, let that capability scan your system for the presence of some kind of spyware. But first is making sure you get one that's reputable and can do the job for you. One thing I want to add to that, so a 0-day attack is something that we haven't figured out the defense mechanism against. So this is somebody who's sitting in some small room thinking of, hey, let me see if I can exploit this vulnerability, and they figured it out and they weaponized it and they distributed it. Well, what happens now is all the security professionals in the world see this and they start responding to it. So the 0-day happened immediately at that time. Sometimes if it's brand new, it's called the 0-day. We don't have a defense to it. So I wanted to make sure that a lot of software now, what they'll do is they'd rather alert you that this behavior is taking place. And if you want to, you can make your security mechanism as strong as possible. You can set them as strong as possible. Like when you internet browse, you can set it to high on your security settings, and it will actually defend on some of those anomaly-based behaviors. So that's something to understand as well. You can secure yourself down to where it'll block everything. But 0 days is one of the hardest things to stay in front of. Continue to update often, because they will come up with they'll actually have a patch right after. It's funny that you're using Zoom. George and I were talking about this. So just last week, literally last week, I think it was the beginning of last week, or it could have been the week before, Zoom had a huge exploit. It was so big that the DoD completely pulled it off of use. And the VA was trying to use it, was requesting, especially in this COVID environment. I said COVID, I apologize. Especially in this heightened environment, our medical community was wanting to use Zoom to get to the veterans, and at that time we said no, and literally got on with the CEO. The CEO had to put out a message about this exploit and had to talk about it, and we actually worked with the company about securing it and and they figured out what the security risk was. We got it patched, and now it's good. George and I talked about it before we started this session. But so, it's a moving target, and we got to continue to make sure we update our systems with the latest and greatest. Don't just think it updates on its own, even when you set it to auto. I hope that answers that question.
Hey, Tim, I'm seeing 3 more questions here. 2 of them are on Zoom. One of them's on Facebook. Jim had asked, whenever I open my computer, a lot of ads show up on the lower right-hand corner. Is this a breach, and can I use Norton to fix it?
If you have ad pop-ups in your computer, sometimes people have downloaded like weather. What's that old weather? WeatherBug. And so some software that you've added, you're allowing those ads to pop up. So usually they're related to something you've allowed. I don't recommend that you allow that. So yes, Norton can scan your system. Make sure you update your definition first. Make sure you update Norton first, and then scan your system for it. But if what I would recommend is try to see what that ad, what's that application that's associated with, like WeatherBug or adware. I mean, there could be an ad, something that you've allowed.
Another question here, Tim. Someone had asked, what are your thoughts about the security of facial recognition for logging in?
Yeah, that's a good one. Biometrics. I wish I had all day to show you guys some stuff, but we actually, when I was at DEF CON this last, we did this at the Texas Cyber Summit here in San Antonio last year. And artificial intelligence, we actually were able to take artificial intelligence, and there's a comedian out there that does an imitation of Obama, and we actually could we actually, through biometrics and artificial intelligence, we could actually see that the behavior was not similar to Obama. It was, but other people thought it really was him. When we started looking at, like, say, for instance, Obama, when he talks, he leans his head to the left a little bit. And that's what they noticed, is that's the way he communicates. And that's biometrics, right? The behavior that I have. Well, the imitator wasn't doing that. So biometrics are very good. But the issue is defending that database of that information. So they're good to use, but keep in mind that there also is, you have to make sure you secure it as well, because then it becomes more information. Your PII, it's personal identifiable information, like the fingerprint, right? Your biometrics, like your fingerprint.
Hey, Tim, just a couple more here, if you don't mind.
I'm fine.
I know after about 10 minutes, there's a tech support fee, right? Is there a tech support charge?
Okay.
No, there's another question here. Ken was asking, can you also briefly discuss how Facebook posts are used to collect on us?
Okay. Yeah. So I do a lot of hiring for security professionals. I'll tell you, I'll be the first person to look at their LinkedIn and Facebook and figure out some personality behaviors from that. So if I'm doing it just to hire somebody, you don't think somebody's doing it to figure out you? So you could be, hey, I'm going to this, you're saying you check in throughout. One of the worst things, and this is for kids, when they post, hey, I'm over here and I'm by myself, come see me. Really? You just told the world that you're sitting at home alone. And then the other thing is, when you take pictures and you post them, there's data inside those pictures that can tell people where you're at. Matter of fact, we apprehended a drug lord who left the country and was a very well-known drug lord. This is an interesting FBI case. And a reporter went down there, thought, hey, he was defending the drug lord and freedom of speech and freedom of whatever. And he took a picture with him, he put his arm around him, took a picture with him. The FBI got that picture, pulled out that GPS data, and actually apprehended the drug lord at that location from the information in that photo. So your information that you put on Facebook, if people are trolling you, does tell something about you. Just be cognizant of that. And that's why you should only share out your information to family and friends and not just share it out to the world.
Tim, appreciate all your time. Jeannie Cox had the last question here, talking about her Apple Mac computer and phone stores login information and automatically populates them when I go to log into a website. How secure is that? Should we avoid that feature? And should we regularly delete all password information from the list on our devices? That was the last question, Tim.
Okay, so I answered that one kind of in with reputable services that actually provide that. I never would like anyone to have an auto login to their computer. I never would like that. But when you're talking about auto login to your website, if you're not using a password vaulting type password management solution, and you're using the inherent one, like say, hey, do you want me to save your password? Like the websites, when you log into a website, the first thing it says, hey, you want me to save your password? Yeah, don't recommend that. Do recommend you delete those, and I'll tell you why. So if someone were to, and what happens when you're surfing the internet unsafely, someone can grab that session in the middle. It's called the man-in-the-middle attack, and they can possibly grab that stored information, those cookies and those certificates, and decrypt that password. Or if they get a hold of your computer. So all those things are possible. So yeah, I strongly encourage to delete those from the way the OS just does it, unless you're using something that's meant to do password management from a reputable type capability.
Tim, that's all the questions that I was seeing on our YouTube. I take this Zoom stream and rebroadcast it on YouTube. So we had a few there on the YouTube chat, and I'm not seeing any more on the Zoom group chat. So again, we appreciate all of your information. I don't know if there's anyone else in the Zoom chat that may have any other questions. If not, I'm going to go ahead and end our stream on YouTube.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. We sure appreciate it. I was very impressed. Normally, we don't still have. We have 37 participants on the YouTube, and we finished up here with almost 20 participants still on the Zoom. So this is the longest people have stayed after the meeting to ask questions. So that actually worked out very, very well.
That could be a fallacy statistic because we're all stuck at home too. But
we just want to have some kind of interaction with somebody,
So I appreciate it. This, like I said, this is a passion of mine. It's been a passion of mine since 2000. And continue to educate kids because that is our future, and making sure that they understand how to secure, and hopefully they go home and teach their family how to secure. George, come back anytime you have another topic you want me to hit. We'll put it together. We'll talk about it, and look forward to the next time.
All righty. Thanks again, Tim. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
God bless.